Whoo-wee, what's going on, YouTube? It's Donnie B all day. Wolfhounds for life. So, to the man. So listen. I just got back from the Carolinas. Had to move my daughter down there. If you guys see her down there, be nice. So I was gone for a few days, almost a week now. And but I'm back. I'm back. And while I was gone, I got a message asking, hey man, can you show how the Hollywood Collectibles Group's Rambo knives are made? Because somebody who had an interest in getting some. I brought out the one because the one and the two are made exactly the same, so I could just use this one, and being lighter in color, it may be easier to see. So let's go over the Hollywood Collectibles Group Mission 1 after Jimmy Lyle's design. Now, you're talking about Lyle's design compared to this design. Specs, they look very, very similar, especially if you go on this side. But they're completely different. My man Joe M, master knife maker, he makes them the right way. I'm going to show you how this one's done. It's not exactly right, but there's a fix for it, and I will go over that. But the Rambo Mission 1, the knife for many of us that got us started in our passion for blades. This is the one that did it for me. And don't forget, right now at the Kukri House at KHHI Nepal, my D-Bad Mission 2, the one everybody's been waiting for, is finally in production. Again, and it's not going to be a copy of a Rambo Mission 2. The D-Bad Mission 2 is going to be, or is, my version on what the knife should have been. And if you've seen my Mission 1, you'll understand the differences and what you're going to be getting out of the two. Big. So let's get into this guy. How is this made? All right, so aside from steel designations and all that jazz, let's just go over construction, because I believe that's what he really wanted to know. So what you have is a hollow handle knife, just like the original. It's hollow handle, it's steel and steel and steel and steel, right? Your guard is, I believe, friction held, so it's just on there by everything being locked down nice and tight. You have a rubber seal on your screw cap that houses, it's stuck. It houses your compass, right? Not the greatest compass in the world, but let's see. I am looking pretty darn right, all right? So it's giving me north, west, east, south. Now you know where I live. So it works really well. So now this is just like the Lyle piece, except Lyle just uses better materials. The threading is better, or should I say Lyle used, because, wrong hand, he is no longer with us. Inside you will find your survival gear. Remember back in the 80s when we used to get the cheap versions of these knives, it was just a bunch of stuff stuffed in there. It didn't come with one of these guys to keep it all dry, but that's pretty good. All right, so now we can get into the bread and butter. I'm going to tell you how this one's made, and I'm going to show you, and then I'm going to explain to you the difference between the Lyle blades. So you do have a steel cylinder right here that is cord wrapped, right? It's on there. The cord, I have to say, for the Hollywood Collectible Group, if anybody's looking to get one, the cord wrapping on this is one of the finer cord wraps I've ever seen on a budget knife. It's done really well. I mean, it is seamless. That is a very, very nice cord wrap. I'm extremely impressed with the quality in that. They did a good job remaking this knife to make it look exactly pretty much like the original. So now inside, and I might have to get a little torch. Hold on. All right, so I got my torch sent to me by the Chainsaw Shack from Big Brody. Awesome dude, knows everything about chainsaws. So there's your inside. Speaking of there's your inside, I was just watching some Blind Owl Bushcraft videos. The guy is just a absolute master bushcrafter. And as far as like, he goes out to the rivers and digs himself out some rocks and then shards them all down and just makes fires with them. Awesome. Seems like the most super nice guy on the planet too. Speaking of nice guys, Joe Forge and Fire Sword and Knife. And my man, my brother, my another mother, Scabber. Don't forget Scab over at Choir Boys with a Z, Cutlery. Awesome. And the Angry Dracolope just sent me a couple videos on this wicked cool old like motorcycle place that he went to. And if you're into like vintage motorcycles and British style racers, check it out. Really, really cool. So let's get into it. So now basically what you have here is your blade, right? And instead of like a lot of the ones in the 80s, what you had was like a rat tail that was threaded, and it was a nut put down on that, right? And it was garbage. They'd loosen up real fast. They'd break real easy. This one is not made like that. This one's made closer to the way a true one is made. And I'll show you if we can. So you see that thing down there? That's the tang. And the tang is in there maybe an inch. There's probably an inch of tang that comes in here. And what happens is you see this threading right here, right? That's for the cap. So they have threading on the cap that threads into this. What they do, in the way Lyle did it, and it was very, very genius, is they take this tube, right, and they thread this end and they thread this end. And what they do is they take that piece of steel right there and they thread it. So this piece of steel isn't a rat tail that's shoved in straight down and just held on somehow. And it's not the other kind where they use, where the tang comes in and then comes out and presses against the sides. No, 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 no. This one is screwed in there. So in order for this to come out, you have to unscrew it, right? Now, the way my man Joe M does, and I believe it's the way Lyle does it, is just even better. He does it with better, you know, obviously better steel and a better, thicker tube. And the threading on theirs, like this is very, very mild threading. It's not that deep of threads, right? So, you know, you can risk the threads breaking or ruining or coming out, but it's not really going to happen for what you use these for. What he would do is they would take after it's already threaded in, drill a hole straight through the tang and pin it. So even though it's not, I mean, they wouldn't break. The original Lyles, my man Joe M, they just don't break. But what also happens is they don't loosen. They can't turn because they're being held in there by a pin. So this is what I was going to tell you earlier. Built really well. So I've used this, I mean, you can see, I use this plenty of times. I use it outside for like gardening stuff. It's sharp, it holds a pretty good edge, and it's just fun to take a Rambo knife out, especially my favorite all-time Rambo knife, and go ahead and cut shrubs and stuff. And the reason I can do that is because there's a nice single-inch piece of steel in here that isn't just shoved in and glued or tack welded. No, it's spun in. It's spun in the way it's supposed to be, and that just makes it stronger, right? So it gives it more ability than the cheaper ones. And that's something that is really, really good. So if you're looking for a reproduction Lyle-style Rambo, the Hollywood Collectibles Group is definitely the way to go just because of that alone. They make it right. What we're going to do, oh yeah, the fix. What you can do is you can take JB Weld or another kind of epoxy, anything you can get down there, and you can tube it in, you can shove it in, and if you're not really worried about this, you could pretty much near fill it if you wanted, but you can take epoxy and put it all the way down there, and that's going to act almost like having a pin through there, where the epoxy, especially if it's the good stuff, is going to make it so that stuff will go nowhere because the epoxy is like cement. Now, if you get the epoxy just to the top of the tang, right, and then you can take like a Q-tip or whatever and try to just smear it down the sides and get it all down, then what happens is you let that dry. This will still fit in there. That goes right to the end of these threads, which means it sits on the end of the tang and goes to the end of the threads. So right there. So there's how big your tang is right there. That's how far it's coming through, and it is screwed in. So now if you clean it up on the inside with a Q-tip after you epoxy it, you'll still be able to fit your tube full of your stuff in there, which is good. If you want it to be just, if you don't plan on using the hollow end or the compass, and you just really want the looks of it, but you want it a little sturdier, you could fill this whole thing with epoxy and it'll be just fine. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna take this out, and I just wanna go ahead and slash at some little branch stuff that what I use it for, and just to show you cuttings. Hold on. All right, so I've got a bunch of stuff like hanging out over the driveway, but check it out in the sun. I mean, you're looking at, it looks like the Rambo movie knife. It just looks good. Let's take a couple shots at this stuff. This is the kind of thing I come out here with this knife and do because it's fun. I just like to cut with it. Now it's hard cutting dangly stuff, but this knife has no problems doing it. It just, oop, I messed up that one. It cuts really well, just really, really well. So let's get into something thicker. Let's get into something thicker right here. Nice little piece of tree right here. Just look at this cutting. That's nice. That's just nice. There's a nice big thick one right here. You guys can all see that, I hope. Look at that. Look at that. That's not so bad. And I have enough faith to where it's not going to break, because even though the construction isn't Lyle, the construction is good enough to do this kind of stuff. So, I mean, it's, you know, you can take your Rambo knife out in bushcraft, right? Now, you can't do that with the 80s stuff. You know, those cheap silver ones that didn't have cord wrapping. They were just awful. You just can't do it. But this one you can get out and you can carve freaking sticks down, and you know, you can make your spears and spikes and hot dog holders, and it's just going to do fine. You know, it's just the joy of holding a Rambo knife while you do your basic stuff. It just makes it that much more fun. And then let's even take a couple whacks at this hanging branch here, just to show you that I'm not messing around. Look at that bit. Look at that. I'm going to put you guys down, then we're going to work on this. And I'm going to show you how strong this thing really is. And while it's not your, you know, Essie Hunglis, it's not your, you know, D-Bat blades, this thing, can chop. Look at this. That is a branch right there. And it is just chopping away. This is a cheap reproduction Rambo knife. Although they're, I mean, cheap, you know what I mean. It's still, they cost over $100. But look at this. It's actually doing a really good job of chopping this. Now, I usually use it for smaller stuff, but just the fact that if you wanted to, you can, right? It's that kind of thing. It's, if you really wanted to take a Rambo knife out and swing it into a tree, you technically can. Now, should you? Probably not. You might mess up your cordage. However, I have not. But you can swing your reproduction fake Rambo knife into something hanging. I want to see if I can get a nice hard swing without catching my arm on the other tree. And look at that. Look at the chunk it took out of there. I mean, that's wood. That's wood, right? And let's see. The guard is not loose. The blade is not loose. The end is not loose. The threading is not loose. So you tell me that this is a piece of crap. It's a piece of garbage. It's unusable. You can tell me that all day long. You can tell me that till you're blue in the face. But I'm going to tell you this. You're wrong. You're wrong. And the reason I'm telling you you're wrong is because I'm proving it. a lot of people, well, you know, a lot of the knife snobs come out and they say, oh, it's all garbage, it's all crap, it's all this, it's all that, you know, blah, blah, blah. And you hear it all the time from the knife snobs. These are the same people who have never used the knives they're bashing. They have never even picked one up. And they're telling you, oh, don't ever use it because you can't. If you buy that thing, it'll break trying to trim your toenails. These people don't know what they're talking about. And if you listen to them, you don't know what you're talking about. If you want to know if a knife is any good, watch somebody use it. Because I just used it and it didn't break. Look, it's a knife. So if you really want a nice Rambo knife that you can afford, that looks like the actual Rambo knife, that you can use on medial tasks, if you want, you know, if you're thinking I'm going to go for a hike and I need a knife in case I'm attacked in the woods by some kind of wild animal, a bear, a Bigfoot, Jeremy, any kind of animal, then, and you want a really cool looking knife, something that you could have fun owning, then this thing will do that. If you think you can't defend yourself with this knife, you're already lost, right? You probably have gotten your ass kicked in a pillow fight way too many times, because if you can't defend yourself with this pokey, you can't defend yourself with anything. Believe me, you come at me while I'm holding the reproduction Rambo knife. Now, you give me the D-Bad Mission 1, different story. But this guy right here, this will go through the ribs, twist in and out. This is, if it could chop wood, it could chop skin, right? So understand that if people are telling you not to buy something because, oh, it's made in China and that makes it cheap, and that, then tell them to show you their cell phone and say, where was your cell phone made? Do you rely on it? Do you trust your life on your cell phone? Can you call a medic in case you get into an accident on your cell phone? Can your family get a hold of you if there's a problem on your cell phone? Where was that cell phone made again? I guarantee it wasn't Kentucky, right? So, right here, the Rambo Mission 1, or the Rambo 1 knife by Hollywood Collectibles Group. That's how it's made. It's spun in, it's held on really well, and it's strong enough to use. Now, is it strong enough to be your everyday survival knife, batoning, and all that jazz? No. And if you think so, you're a moron. But can you get out there and use it in an emergency? Absolutely. Can it be your self-defense knife? Absolutely. Can you go out and just trim your bushes? Absolutely. You can even spread butter on your bread with this if you want. If you want to invite some people over and you want to impress them with, this is how I cut my steak, well, there you go. So, I hope that answered the question on how it was built. It's built better than really cheap crap. And it's still a usable blade. Every knife has a purpose. This one is mainly purposeful. You know, the purpose is to be displayed. However, you can still use it. I'll show you that any day of the week. All right, so that's it for me. I'm back. I am Donnie B all day. Until next knife.